July 1954, Haneda Airport, Tokyo. A man walks through customs with complete confidence, but his passport tells an impossible story. He carries documents from a country called Taured, a nation that has never existed on any map. Within hours, he would vanish without a trace. This is the story that has puzzled investigators for decades, a mystery that challenges everything we know about reality. Welcome to the most baffling disappearance in aviation history. I'm your host, and today we're diving deep into a case that has spawned countless theories and debates, from parallel dimensions to elaborate hoaxes. But what really happened at Haneda Airport that summer day? How does a man simply cease to exist? And why do the official records remain so mysterious? Buckle up, because this journey will take us through classified government files, witness testimonies, and theories that will make you question reality itself. The year 1954 was a time of rebuilding in Japan. World War II had ended less than a decade earlier. Haneda Airport was becoming a major international hub. Customs officials were used to processing travelers from dozens of different countries and territories, but nothing could have prepared them for what happened next. It was a humid Tuesday morning in July. Flight after flight arrived from across Asia and Europe. Business travelers, tourists, diplomats, all routine. Then, at approximately 10:30 a.m., a well-dressed European man approached the customs desk. He appeared completely normal in every way. Medium height, brown hair, wearing a business suit. He spoke multiple languages fluently. His demeanor was calm and professional. The customs officer asked for his passport and documentation. The man handed over what appeared to be a perfectly legitimate European passport. But when the officer examined the document more closely, something immediately caught his attention. The country of origin was listed as Taured. The officer had processed thousands of passports. He was familiar with every European nation and territory, but he had never heard of a country called Taured. Thinking it might be a translation error, he politely asked the man about his homeland. The traveler seemed genuinely confused by the question. "Taured," he replied matter-of-factly. "It's located between France and Spain." He pointed to the area on a world map. The customs officer looked at the map. Between France and Spain lay Andorra, a tiny principality known to every geography student. But the man insisted that wasn't correct. According to him, Taured had existed for over 1,000 years. He had been born there, lived there his entire life. The situation was escalating beyond a simple misunderstanding. The customs officer called his supervisor. Soon, multiple officials were examining the passport. The document appeared authentic in every technical detail. Official stamps, watermarks, security features. But the issuing country simply didn't exist. Airport security was called in to investigate further. The man remained cooperative, but increasingly frustrated. He couldn't understand why his homeland wasn't recognized. Officials decided to search his luggage and personal effects. What they found only deepened the mystery. His belongings told a consistent but impossible story. Currency from Taured filled his wallet. The bills featured unfamiliar leaders and landmarks, yet the paper and printing quality seemed genuine. Business cards identified him as a representative of a company based in Taured's capital city. Hotel reservations were made under the same identity. Most remarkably, his passport showed entry stamps from multiple real countries over several years. France, Spain, the United Kingdom, all legitimate. But how could immigration authorities in those nations have accepted a passport from a non-existent country? The stamps appeared completely authentic. The investigation was now involving senior airport officials. They contacted the Japanese Ministry of Foreign Affairs. No one had any record of a country called Taured. Meanwhile, the man was becoming more agitated. He demanded to know why his perfectly valid documentation was being questioned by what he saw as incompetent officials. To prove his story, he asked them to contact the company he worked for in Taured. He provided telephone numbers and addresses. Officials attempted to make these international calls. The phone numbers didn't connect to anything. Directory assistants had no record of the company. They also tried to verify his hotel reservation in Tokyo. According to his documentation, he had a confirmed booking at a major hotel in the city center. The hotel confirmed they had no reservation under his name or his company's name. Yet he had what appeared to be legitimate confirmation papers. By this point, several hours had passed. The man was clearly exhausted and confused. Officials decided to detain him pending further investigation. They escorted him to a secure room at the airport. 2 guards were posted outside his door. His passport and belongings were locked in a safe. The plan was to hold him overnight while authorities conducted a more thorough investigation. Immigration lawyers would be consulted in the morning. The man was provided with food and basic amenities. He seemed resigned to spending the night in custody. Witnesses say he appeared genuinely bewildered by the situation. The guards maintained their posts throughout the night. The room had no windows and only one door. Escape would have been virtually impossible. But when officials arrived the next morning, they made a discovery that defied all logic. The room was completely empty. The man had vanished without a trace. The door was still locked from the outside. The guards swore no one had entered or left. More shocking still, when officials opened the safe, his passport and all related documents had disappeared. Nothing remained except empty folders. A thorough search of the airport was immediately launched. Security cameras were reviewed frame by frame. Every exit point was examined for signs of escape. The investigation revealed absolutely nothing. No evidence of how he had left the secure room. No footage of him anywhere in the airport. It was as if the man from Taured had simply ceased to exist overnight, vanished as mysteriously as he had appeared. Airport authorities were baffled. They had handled thousands of unusual immigration cases, but nothing like this had ever happened before. The story might have remained a local mystery, confined to internal airport reports, but word began to leak out to the press. Japanese newspapers picked up the story first. Then international media began reporting on the mysterious visitor from nowhere. The case captured public imagination worldwide. Letters poured into Japanese authorities from people claiming to know about Taured. Some claimed it was a secret European microstate. Others suggested it was a translation of an obscure region. A few insisted they had visited Taured themselves. But geographers and cartographers were unanimous. No such country existed anywhere on Earth. No historical records mentioned any nation called Taured. The mystery deepened when investigators tried to track down the original witnesses. Many of the airport staff had conflicting memories. Some remembered the incident clearly. Others claimed it never happened at all. Official records seemed to have gaps and inconsistencies. This led to the first major theory about the case. Perhaps the entire story was an elaborate hoax or urban legend that had gotten out of control. Skeptics pointed out that the original source of the story was difficult to verify. No contemporaneous newspaper accounts could be found. They argued that the tale had grown in the telling, like a modern folklore that people wanted to believe. A mystery story for the atomic age, but other researchers disagreed strongly. They had interviewed elderly airport employees who swore they remembered the incident. These witnesses provided detailed descriptions that matched across multiple interviews. Their accounts seemed too consistent to be fabricated. One retired customs officer, interviewed in the 1980s, provided a particularly compelling testimony. He claimed to have been the first to examine the passport. According to his account, the document was flawless in every technical aspect except for the country name. He had kept detailed notes about the incident. Unfortunately, those notes had been destroyed in a fire at his home years later, but his memory of that day remained crystal clear. The hoax theory faced another significant challenge. If someone wanted to create a fake mystery story, why make it so bizarre and unbelievable? Most hoaxes are designed to be plausible enough to fool people temporarily. The Taured story was almost too strange to believe. This led researchers to consider more extraordinary explanations for the incident. What if the man really was from somewhere else? The parallel dimension theory gained popularity in the 1960s and 70s. Quantum physics was revealing strange possibilities. According to this theory, the man was accidentally transported from a parallel Earth where Taured actually existed, a world almost identical to ours, but with small differences. In his reality, perhaps Andorra never existed. Instead, the region between France and Spain was occupied by the ancient kingdom of Taured. Supporters of this theory point to the man's genuine confusion. His reactions seemed authentic, not performed. He truly believed in his homeland's existence. The parallel dimension hypothesis would also explain his mysterious disappearance from the locked room. Perhaps he was recalled to his own reality. However, scientists remain highly skeptical of interdimensional travel explanations. The physics involved would be incredibly complex. Critics argue that if such travel were possible, we would expect to see many more such incidents. Why would this be an isolated case? Another popular theory involves time travel rather than dimensional travel. Perhaps the man was from our own future or past. In this scenario, Taured might be a country that will exist in the future, or existed long ago. Political boundaries change constantly throughout history. The time travel theory faces similar scientific objections as the parallel dimension hypothesis. Current physics suggests such travel is extremely unlikely. A more prosaic explanation involves espionage and classified government operations. The 1950s were the height of the Cold War. Intelligence agencies routinely created false identities and fabricated documentation for their operatives. Perhaps the man was a spy with experimental papers. The passport from Taured might have been a test of new counterfeiting techniques. His disappearance could have been a rescue operation. This theory would explain why official records are incomplete and sometimes contradictory. Classified operations often leave confusing paper trails. Government agencies might have had reasons to obscure the true nature of the incident. National security concerns could justify the secrecy. The espionage theory has gained credibility as more Cold War secrets have been declassified. We now know intelligence agencies conducted bizarre experiments. Projects involving psychological warfare, false identities, and deception operations were common during this period. However, no declassified documents have specifically mentioned the Taured incident. The espionage explanation remains purely speculative. Some researchers have proposed a more mundane but intriguing possibility. Perhaps Taured was a real place after all. Historical records show many small nations and city-states that no longer exist. Political boundaries were fluid in earlier centuries. Could Taured have been an obscure principality that was absorbed by larger nations? Its existence might have been forgotten by history. Genealogy researchers have searched extensively for any historical reference to Taured. Medieval documents, maps, and chronicles have been examined. So far, no credible historical evidence has been found for such a nation. The name Taured appears in no known records. Linguistic analysis has also been conducted on the name itself. Taured doesn't match known European naming patterns. It doesn't appear to derive from Latin, Germanic, or Celtic roots like most European place names. The etymology remains completely mysterious. Another angle of investigation focuses on the technical aspects of the passport. How could such a convincing document be created? 1950s passport security was less sophisticated than modern standards, but creating a completely fake national passport would still be challenging. The document would need to fool experienced customs officials. This suggests considerable skill and resources. Professional forgers of that era typically modified existing documents. Creating an entirely new national identity would be unprecedented. The fact that the passport contained legitimate entry stamps from other countries adds another layer of complexity. How did customs officials in multiple nations accept and stamp a passport from Taured? This detail has never been satisfactorily explained. Some researchers suggest the stamps were also forged, but this would require an incredibly sophisticated and widespread counterfeiting operation. The psychological aspects of the case are equally fascinating to analyze. The man's behavior throughout the incident was notable. Witnesses described him as genuinely confused rather than deceptive or evasive. His frustration seemed authentic and heartfelt. Psychological profilers have suggested several possible explanations for his mental state. Perhaps he was suffering from an elaborate delusion. Certain psychiatric conditions can create vivid false memories and alternate realities. The patient genuinely believes in their delusions. However, psychiatric delusions typically involve personal rather than geographical fantasies. Creating an entire fictional country would be unusual. Memory researchers have also studied the case from the perspective of false memory syndrome. Could the man have had false memories implanted? This theory suggests he was the victim of some kind of experimental psychological manipulation. His memories of Taured might have been artificially created. While memory implantation was theoretical in the 1950s, we now know such techniques are possible. Modern research has demonstrated false memory creation, but the technology required for such manipulation far exceeded 1950s capabilities. This explanation seems anachronistic. The investigation into the man's background revealed other puzzling details. His appearance suggested European ancestry. Witnesses described his accent as educated but difficult to place geographically. He spoke French, Spanish, and English fluently. His clothing was expensive and well-tailored. Business cards and papers suggested he was a successful commercial representative. Yet no trace of his business activities could be found in any legitimate records. The companies he claimed to represent didn't exist. This created another puzzle for investigators. If the man was a con artist or imposter, what was his ultimate goal? He wasn't attempting to claim political asylum or avoid law enforcement from his supposed homeland. He seemed to be conducting routine business travel. Most con artists have clear financial motivations, but the man from Taured wasn't trying to obtain money or valuable resources. His behavior was more consistent with someone who genuinely believed in his own story. This adds credibility to the more exotic theories. The currency found in his possession has been analyzed by numismatists and historians. The bills appeared professionally printed. They featured portraits of leaders who don't exist in our historical records. Landmarks and symbols were equally unfamiliar. Creating convincing fake currency requires significant technical expertise and resources. The quality suggested government-level production capabilities. Paper analysis revealed fibers and chemical composition consistent with legitimate European currency of the era. The printing processes matched professional standards. This level of detail seems excessive for a simple hoax or con game. The investment in creating such props would be enormous. Modern forgery experts who have studied photographs of the Taured currency express amazement at the sophistication and attention to detail. The disappearance from the locked room remains the most baffling aspect of the entire case. Multiple guards confirmed the security was tight. The room had solid walls with no hidden passages. The ventilation system was too small for human passage. The door was the only possible exit. Security experts have analyzed the layout and found no plausible escape route. The man would have needed supernatural powers to leave. Some investigators have suggested bribery or collusion. Perhaps the guards were paid to look the other way while accomplices helped him escape. But this theory requires multiple conspirators working in perfect coordination without leaving any evidence. The guards would have risked their careers and possibly criminal charges for helping a mysterious stranger. More problematically, how could accomplices have retrieved his passport and documents from a locked safe in a different location? The simultaneous disappearance of the man and all his documentation suggests careful planning and execution. Yet no evidence of such a conspiracy has ever been discovered despite decades of investigation. Some researchers have focused on the timing of the man's arrival at Haneda Airport. July 1954 was a significant period in Japanese history. The country was still occupied by Allied forces, though sovereignty had been restored 2 years earlier. Security procedures were evolving rapidly. Perhaps the confusion about documentation was partly due to transitional bureaucratic systems. Officials might have been less certain about procedures. However, customs and immigration officials were experienced professionals who processed international travelers daily. They would have been familiar with all legitimate European passports and documentation. The Taured passport would have stood out immediately. The incident occurred during a period of increasing international travel as commercial aviation expanded globally. New nations were emerging from colonial empires. Political boundaries were changing as the post-war world order took shape. But these changes were well documented and communicated to immigration authorities worldwide. No new European nation called Taured appeared on any official lists. Conspiracy theorists have suggested the incident was connected to classified projects involving reality manipulation or dimensional research. Some point to concurrent military experiments with radar, electronics, and exotic physics that were conducted during the 1950s. The Philadelphia experiment and similar legends suggest government interest in space-time manipulation technologies. While these conspiracy theories are intriguing, they lack credible evidence and rely on speculation rather than facts. Mainstream scientists dismiss such theories as pseudoscientific fantasy without basis in established physics. The Man from Taured case has inspired numerous works of fiction across multiple entertainment media. Science fiction authors have used the incident as inspiration for stories about parallel dimensions and alternate realities. Television shows and documentaries have featured the mystery as evidence of paranormal phenomena. Internet forums and social media continue to debate the case, with new theories emerging regularly. The story has become a modern legend that captures public fascination with unexplained mysteries and possibilities. Academic researchers have approached the case from multiple disciplinary perspectives, including history, psychology, and sociology. Historians focus on verifying the factual basis of the original account and searching for documentary evidence. Psychologists examine the mental state and possible motivations of the mysterious traveler. Sociologists study how urban legends develop and spread through populations in the modern information age. Despite extensive research and investigation, no consensus has emerged about what really happened at Haneda Airport. The case remains as mysterious today as it was 70 years ago, when it first captured worldwide attention. Recent developments in quantum physics have renewed interest in parallel dimension theories. Many worlds' interpretation suggests infinite parallel universes exist with slight variations from our own reality. While this doesn't prove interdimensional travel is possible, it provides a theoretical framework for considering such possibilities. However, crossing between parallel universes would require technology and energy levels far beyond current human capabilities. The mathematics involved are incredibly complex, and the physics remains highly speculative despite decades of theoretical development. Advances in computer technology have enabled new approaches to investigating the case through digital forensics and analysis. Researchers have used artificial intelligence to analyze witness testimonies for consistency and credibility patterns. Linguistic analysis software has examined the etymology and cultural context of the name Taured across multiple languages. Geographical information systems have mapped historical political boundaries to search for any trace of such a nation. So far, these technological approaches have not provided definitive answers, but have eliminated some potential explanations. The investigation continues to evolve as new research methods become available and previously classified documents are released. Professional skeptics and debunkers have made serious attempts to conclusively disprove the story. They argue that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, which the Taured case lacks. Skeptics point to the absence of contemporaneous newspaper reports and official government documentation. They suggest the story is a classic urban legend that has been embellished and distorted through repeated retelling over decades. However, believers counter that absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. Government agencies might have reasons to suppress or classify information about unusual incidents. The Cold War era was characterized by extensive secrecy and information control, especially regarding security matters. Modern Freedom of Information Act requests have revealed that many seemingly ordinary events were classified for decades without obvious reasons. Intelligence agencies during this period operated with minimal oversight and broad authority to suppress information. Project MKUltra, for example, remained secret for decades despite involving thousands of unwitting subjects in psychological experiments. If the Taured incident involved classified operations, the documentation might remain sealed or have been destroyed long ago. The investigation has also explored possible connections to other unexplained disappearances from the same time period. Several cases of mysterious travelers with questionable documentation were reported in the 1950s. While none involved complete disappearances, the pattern suggests systematic testing of false identity techniques. Immigration authorities across Europe and Asia reported unusual passport anomalies during this period. Most were dismissed as clerical errors or poor quality forgeries, but the frequency was unusually high. Some researchers believe these incidents were part of a larger covert program testing the limits of document fraud. The Taured case might have been the most sophisticated attempt that accidentally became public. Another investigative angle focuses on the man's physical appearance and behavioral characteristics. Multiple witnesses described him as unusually calm and confident despite the escalating situation. This suggests either exceptional training in maintaining cover identities or genuine belief in his story. Psychological profiles of deep cover operatives show similar traits of unshakable conviction in their assumed identities. Intelligence training programs of the era emphasized complete psychological immersion in false personas. Operatives were taught to believe their cover stories so completely that they could pass any interrogation. The man's multilingual abilities also fit the profile of a trained agent rather than an ordinary businessman. His fluency in French, Spanish, and English suggests extensive linguistic education or prolonged exposure to these languages. The combination of language skills, expensive clothing, and professional demeanor indicates significant resources behind his mission. However, if he was a spy, the operation seemed to lack any clear objective or benefit. Espionage missions typically involve gathering intelligence, making contacts, or conducting covert operations. The man from Taured appeared to be conducting routine business activities with no apparent intelligence value. This paradox has led some researchers to consider the possibility of a failed or aborted operation. Perhaps something went wrong with his mission or cover story before he reached his intended destination. The mysterious disappearance could have been an emergency extraction by his handlers. Modern technology has enabled new approaches to analyzing the physical evidence that remains from the case. Digital enhancement of witness sketches has created more detailed portraits of the mysterious traveler. Facial recognition software has been used to search historical databases for possible matches. While no definitive identification has been made, several potential candidates have emerged from intelligence agency records. Declassified files from various governments contain references to operatives matching his general description. Unfortunately, most intelligence records from this period remain heavily redacted or completely classified. The few available documents provide tantalizing hints without revealing complete information. DNA analysis would be the most definitive approach to identifying the man, but no biological samples remain. Airport security procedures in 1954 did not include systematic evidence collection for routine immigration violations. The room where he was detained has been renovated multiple times, destroying any potential trace evidence. International cooperation in the investigation has revealed similar incidents in other countries during the same period. British immigration authorities reported at least 3 cases of travelers with questionable European documentation. French customs officials documented several instances of passport anomalies involving unfamiliar country names. West German border guards noted unusual travel documents that couldn't be verified through normal channels. These incidents were generally handled quietly and didn't receive public attention like the Taured case. The pattern suggests a coordinated effort to test immigration security systems across multiple nations. Cold War tensions created motivation for such systematic intelligence operations targeting border controls. Understanding immigration weaknesses would be valuable for smuggling operatives or sensitive materials across borders. The Taured incident might have been the most ambitious test case that unexpectedly attracted publicity. Recent interviews with retired intelligence officers have provided new insights into 1950s covert operations. Several former agents acknowledged that document fraud experiments were conducted during this period. However, none admit direct knowledge of the Taured incident specifically, or operations involving fictional countries. The compartmentalized nature of intelligence work means individual agents typically knew only their specific assignments. Higher-level planning and coordination remained secret even from most operational personnel. This secrecy continues to complicate modern investigations into the case decades after the Cold War ended. Academic conferences and symposiums regularly feature presentations on the Taured mystery. Historians, anthropologists, and folklorists debate the case's significance in understanding modern mythology. The story has become a cultural phenomenon that transcends its original context and continues evolving with each retelling. Internet communities dedicated to the mystery have emerged across multiple platforms, sharing theories and supposed evidence. Some claim to have discovered new documentation or witness testimony that sheds light on the incident. However, most of these claims prove to be hoaxes, misunderstandings, or wishful thinking upon investigation. The persistent interest in the case reflects deeper human fascination with unexplained phenomena and possibilities. Stories like The Man from Taured serve as modern folklore that explores themes of identity and reality. They provide safe ways to contemplate extraordinary possibilities without challenging fundamental beliefs. The mystery also resonates with contemporary concerns about globalization, immigration, and national identity. In an era of increasing mobility and fluid political boundaries, the concept of questionable national origins feels relevant. Recent geopolitical developments have created new stateless populations and disputed territorial claims. The Man from Taured represents ultimate statelessness, citizenship in a country that doesn't exist. This theme appears frequently in contemporary immigration debates and refugee crises worldwide. Professional investigators continue reviewing the case periodically as new analytical techniques become available. Cold case units from various police agencies have examined the evidence using modern forensic methods. While they haven't solved the mystery, these investigations have ruled out several previously proposed explanations. The consensus among law enforcement professionals is that the incident involved either elaborate hoax or classified operation. Simple explanations like mistaken identity or clerical errors don't account for the sophisticated documentation involved. The mysterious disappearance remains the most challenging aspect for any conventional explanation. Security experts have repeatedly analyzed the airport detention facility and found no plausible escape routes. This suggests either insider assistance or capabilities beyond normal human limitations were involved in the vanishing. The simultaneous disappearance of all documentation from a separate secure location adds another layer of complexity. Coordinating both disappearances would require extensive planning and multiple conspirators. Yet no evidence of such a conspiracy has ever been discovered despite thorough investigation. As we reach the conclusion of our investigation, we must acknowledge that the Man from Taured remains one of history's most perplexing mysteries. 70 years after that humid July morning at Haneda Airport, we are no closer to a definitive answer. Every theory we've explored has compelling evidence in its favor and significant problems that undermine it. The hoax theory explains the lack of documentation, but struggles with the sophisticated evidence and credible witness testimony. The espionage theory accounts for the mysterious disappearance, but doesn't explain the apparent lack of any clear operational objective. The parallel dimension theory addresses the man's genuine confusion and beliefs, but relies on unproven scientific concepts. Each explanation illuminates certain aspects of the case while leaving other crucial elements unexplained. Perhaps the truth combines elements from multiple theories in ways we haven't yet considered. Or perhaps the real explanation is something entirely different that no one has imagined. What makes this case so enduringly fascinating is not just the mystery itself, but what it reveals about human nature. Our desire to find patterns and explanations, even in the face of contradictory evidence, reflects fundamental aspects of consciousness. The Man from Taured challenges our assumptions about reality, identity, and possibility in ways that continue to resonate. Whether he was a confused traveler, a sophisticated spy, an interdimensional visitor, or something else entirely remains unknown. What we do know is that his story has captured imaginations worldwide and inspired countless investigations. The search for answers continues as new technologies and methodologies offer fresh approaches to old questions. Future generations of researchers may discover evidence we've missed or develop theories we haven't considered. Until then, the Man from Taured remains an enigma wrapped in mystery, surrounded by unanswered questions. His brief appearance in our world and subsequent vanishing continue to challenge everything we think we know. Was he a visitor from another dimension? A master spy with impossible documentation? Or simply a disturbed individual with elaborate delusions? The answer may be simpler than we imagine or more extraordinary than we can conceive, but it remains frustratingly elusive. In the end, perhaps the mystery itself is more valuable than any solution could ever be. The Man from Taured represents the ultimate unknown possibility in a world increasingly mapped and documented. He reminds us that reality may be far stranger and more complex than our current understanding suggests. Whether traveling from parallel dimensions, distant futures, forgotten pasts, or simply the depths of human imagination, his story continues to inspire wonder and challenge our most basic assumptions about the nature of existence itself. As long as mysteries like this persist, humanity will continue searching for answers to impossible questions. The investigation into the Man from Taured may never reach a definitive conclusion, but the journey of discovery continues. New evidence may emerge tomorrow that finally solves the puzzle or deepens the mystery even further. Until that day comes, we can only speculate, investigate, and wonder at the possibilities. The Man from Taured walked into Haneda Airport on a summer morning in 1954 and disappeared into legend. His passport bore the name of a country that existed nowhere but in his mind, or perhaps in a reality parallel to our own. Whatever the truth may be, his story has become immortal in the annals of unexplained phenomena. And perhaps that is the most appropriate fate for a man who claimed citizenship in a nation that never was. Thank you for joining me on this journey through one of history's most baffling mysteries, the case of the Man from Taured. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the unknown and unexplained, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts. What do you think really happened at Haneda Airport that day? Let me know in the comments below. Until next time, keep questioning, keep investigating, and never stop wondering. Because sometimes the most important truths are hidden in the deepest mysteries waiting to be discovered. This has been your exploration of the impossible made possible and the possible made impossible. The Man from Taured may be gone, but his mystery lives on, challenging us to expand our understanding. In a world where passport control and border security seem absolute, he reminds us that exceptions may still exist. Whether those exceptions come from human ingenuity, government conspiracy, or forces beyond our current comprehension, they serve as important reminders that our reality may be far more flexible and mysterious than we assume. So the next time you show your passport at an international border, remember the Man from Taured. Remember that somewhere out there may be other travelers with impossible stories to tell. And remember that the greatest mysteries are often hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone brave enough to investigate. Until we meet again in the realm of the unexplained and extraordinary, Keep searching for the truth behind the impossible.